All right, let's go into the Patriots. These teams are less interesting, the ones coming up, but they're still kind of interesting. Patriots, obviously, you know, their position in the NFL has changed greatly over the past say like 5 years or so. And they find themselves now. I mean, this division we talked about this before. This division was just a joke for like a decade, maybe more. And it was just because it was the Patriots and then just these crap ass teams. Maybe every now and then one of them would go like 8-8 or 9-7 and make the playoffs or something like that. Now the Patriots find themselves in a real uphill battle in this division, you know, still coached by Belichick, you know, still with some expectations attached to him. But, you know, they're going to have to fight to not finish last in this division.
Yeah. Seriously, with Rodgers now on the Jets and them no longer a laughingstock, absolutely. I very much look forward to this decision as just a division as a football fan, but as a Patriots fan, yeah, it sucks. You used to be the bully and just that you were going to the playoffs every single year. It didn't matter. I definitely think at least 3 teams are coming out of this division as the wild cards after the Bills potentially. We'll talk about that later, how we see it fill out, because I actually am really excited about this Patriots team. I haven't been, since the Patricia offense era, Joe Judge, like all that hideousness. That's gone. And let's start there with the team level. What I expect with Bill O'Brien now here at offense coordinator, I think it's going to be a big turnaround. Anytime he's been with a team, whether it was at Penn State, then it was with, the Pats for a little while, then it was with the Texans. Like, it's always been a good offense. Regardless of how he rubs you and if he manages his players the right way, he has always called one of the top 15 offenses when he was the play caller at the NFL level. And then he went to Alabama, worked with Mac himself for a while. So I like Bill O'Brien. I think this is definitely going to bring some stability. The early OTA praise is all about how Mac has definitely seemed way more comfortable. He's hitting nearly all of his throws. Him and Bill O'Brien are kind of laughing and looking excited together, and he's holding him accountable in the right way, not like the Matt Patricia dickhead way. So I'm really into this Bill O'Brien, Mac Jones marriage, returning to the Patriots and seeing what B.O.B. does here. And so his last time out there with the Texans in an NFL game was in 2020, and his offenses over those last few years typically above league average in terms of pace and amount of plays, 35 and 61 more plays than league average. The last game out, though, 2020, he was actually minus 128 behind league average. So I did mix it in, and I do think you're looking at his historical trends, the fact he's typically at least 30 or more over. I balanced that out and said 29 total more plays than average, 1077, being that with 576 pass, 501 rush. He is typically pretty balanced. You'd think like Deshaun Watson, nearly leading the league in passing. He must have been much more pass happy, but that was just a lot of efficiency from Deshaun Watson. It was typically a close to 55-45 type of split. And that's what I have here. I think this team will lean on their defense, lean on the run game to bleed some clock, and then take a lot of intermediate to deep passing play action with Tyquan Thornton and Devontae Parker and who knows, maybe DeAndre Hopkins. So obviously that would really shake up these projections. As of now, he hasn't signed, but there's a lot of good vibes going on there. So we're projecting him right now without it. Of course, as the summer goes, we update projections and we'll talk about how some of those things have changed as the news falls. But this is without Hopkins being projected in right now. So as a whole, though, I do expect a much more competent, consistent, regimented offense here under Bill O'Brien with a near, 43-47% split. That feels right for a Patriots team under Bill Belichick. They typically have actually been 56% and, a little bit more pass happy the last couple of years. I think they rein that in and really ride Rhamondre Stevenson and then the play action game from there. So I think we do start with Rhamondre Stevenson here. He's definitely the first guy going. Let's talk about the backfield in general. For the Patriots, definitely the most interesting fantasy product because behind him, there's interesting pieces late, but then there's some overpriced pieces, and it really just comes down to should you draft Rhamondre Stevenson or not for the New England Patriots. So I right now project him for 53% of the backfield carries, 266 would out of that pie. It's a healthy ground pie. That's a lot of carries. And I just wanted to kind of show you guys like this. A lot of people are projecting for 280, 300. There's no one behind him. And I mean, 266 is bolder than you might realize because you look here for Patriots running back ones. Back in 2015, LeGarrette Blount had a 299 carry season. Other than that, we had one 261 carry year in 2019. But as you can see here, and that was the Cam Newton year where like everybody was just running. 210, 202, 137, 209, and 180 for their running back one in those years. And right around, I have him at 53% market share. That's kind of right where we see A lot of it's below that. And I do think that this is a much clearer situation. Rhamondre is a clear leg up over Pierre Strong, and the next guy is up. So I do think 53 to 56, definitely worthwhile here. But the fact that some people be like 266, that's way too low for Rhamondre. Look at who he's playing with. You look at their history, and it's not great. You always hear about the Patriots committees at running backs and all that. So I just wanted to kind of point that out when we're talking about Rhamondre. If you think that looks light, well, his history wouldn't be on your side. Another thing, 8 touchdowns. That seems really light for Rhamondre. He's a bull, right? You look at it, he hasn't scored more than 6 touchdowns in a season yet. And this was one concerning trend I saw for Bill O'Brien running backs. The most a Bill O'Brien running back has ever scored in terms of touchdowns as the lead guy is just 6. Which is kind of crazy to me. 6'3".
You're kind of going out on a limb with the 8.
So 8 is, more than any running back has ever scored under Bill O'Brien. Rhamondre is probably a better player than any. You look at Lamar Miller and some of those guys. They just were bums that he had at running back. So you can never just force him. But Bill O'Brien does get a little cute, a little pass happy when he gets in there. That's why Deshaun Watson had so many touchdowns because of how often his coach liked to call it up. So that's where I see him shaking out. And as you can see, I actually really like Pierre Strong now that James Robinson has been released. He's the next man up. And he was averaging 10 yards a touch last year, very minimal touches, but he looked really, really good whenever it was used. It's kind of the rookie thing. The Patriots will always let them earn a year first and then get in there. I wouldn't be surprised at all. They do like to split carries. I do think over 500 team carries is going to be a lot available. So I think over 100 carries, I have him at 115, 540, averaging that 4.7 yards a pop. He was very explosive in college, great in the zone game. One of the top graded zone runners at PFF ever. So I really like this Pierre Strong kid. He can catch, but I do have Montgomery. I shouldn't have moved away from Rhamondre yet, because where I do see a big downtick for him, he had 89 targets last year. I just don't see that with Ty Montgomery healthy. I know a lot of you are rolling your eyes. Ty Montgomery.
I'm rolling my eyes.
That's who you're worried about, Ty Montgomery. I agree with you. We shouldn't have to be worried about Ty Montgomery. I would not like to worry about Ty Montgomery, but early spring practices, Ivan Fears, the running back coach, can't overstate how much he's so happy to have Ty Montgomery back, and Belichick welcoming him back. And remember, he was the one playing the third down role. He only lasted 1 game last year, caught a receiving touchdown, was the main third down back, had 6 targets in his only game there. And that's when Rhamondre took off, is once he was hurt. So I do think they're going to kind of, in games without Damian Harris, they would work on, whoever else they could as the receiving back. And Rhamondre would see his touchdowns go up a little bit, but his receptions come down. So I think as good as Rhamondre can be in the receiving game, they're going to scale that role back for as long as Montgomery's healthy. And even if he gets hurt, I wouldn't be shocked at all if Pierre Strong picks up some of that work. So that was a big cut for Rhamondre, 256 and just 1 receiving touchdown after having over 400 yards last year. And you can, again, if they don't cut that, if he sees another 80 targets and hauls in another 65 plus balls, Rhamondre is going to blow this projection out of the water. I already have projected him pretty favorably, but the way he's getting drafted at like the end of round 2, ahead of Derrick Henry and some of these drafts, you're going to need him to sustain that receiving work in order to pay that off. And I just personally am a little more worried about these backs. As just a Patriots fan, as someone who's seen it time and time again. You shouldn't have to worry about Ty Montgomery, but you probably have to. And I just wanted to kind of emphasize that point as well when breaking down the backfield. At the receiving, how does this all get distributed? I do think Mac Jones, we can start with him. I think he's going to have his best year yet. He's never broken 4,000 yards. I think 4,100, 4,200, something like that. And he's never crossed over 28 touchdowns, rather, his rookie year. I think he can break that this year with Bill O'Brien, a more stable offense, better time deep shots. I'm a big fan of Mac bouncing back this year. I don't know that it will necessarily matter fantasy-wise. I just think real-life-wise, this will be a much more competent offense. But 4,100 yards and 30-ish touchdowns without any leg points, that's not something you really need to go out of your way to draft. He'll probably finish as like a quarterback 25 and be okay. Maybe have 2 or 3 big blow-ups on the year, but it's not somebody I'm going after. Now, if DeAndre Hopkins arrives, of course, we adjust for one of the best receivers in the game coming here. But until he does, this is how I have things shaking out target share-wise. 18% going to JuJu, manning that slot. I don't think JuJu's all that good anymore, but the slot role has been incredible for the Patriots. I had another time to kind of slim down here and just show you wide receiver 1, which has been the slot receiver, Jacoby Myers, Julian Edelman, Wes Welker for so many years. And you can just kind of see, if you look at New England, 30%, 20%, 26%, 26%, 23, 24, 22% target shares for their slot guys. So at 18%, I'm under projecting JuJu Smith-Schuster, right now based on the history of the Patriots slot receivers. But I still think 100 targets right there, pretty reasonable. And you can see what JuJu, that's kind of what 101, 28 got hurt, but then 147, he's had target hog years in the past. So 109, not a target hog, but serviceable. He can score touchdowns. He's a physical guy. He's good after the catch. So this is a baseline, a nice floor. I wouldn't be shocked if JuJu beat this and scored, 7 to 8 touchdowns instead, and maybe even approach 1,000 yards, given how valuable that slot role has been for the Pats. Again, it's Bill O'Brien coming back, though. I wonder if that's the same type of offense. To me, I think the outside guys are going to get some more timely deep shots and some good work there, which will make them unpredictable. But I actually really like these guys at their prices. Tyquan Thornton is going, about the last 4 rounds or so of drafts. And he's a pretty good pick. He's a great athlete, the fastest receiver to come out in the last 5 years. Showed some real glimpses, bulked up, and was one of the highlight stars. But we see that often. The highlight stars of OTAs, when there's no pads on, are often the speedsters. It makes sense. He did struggle with physicality. He's small. He's thin. So we'll see if he can beat presses. He had some size to hopefully do that. I think Devontae Parker, though, largely undrafted. I think he's going very, very overlooked right now. I think they project quite similarly. In fact, I have Parker outscoring Tyquan Thornton right now, but he doesn't get drafted at all. He's one of my favorite last-round picks. His last game out, he scored 2 touchdowns. He had multiple 100-yard days. He only played about 10 full games, and about a third of those were really, really useful fantasy games. So at least in best ball, as a last-round stab, a guy's going to pop up for a couple touchdowns here or there. I really like Parker in this offense. I think the biggest impact, though, is going to come at tight end. As you can see, I have Gesicki coming in for 8 touchdowns. I love Gesicki. I think he's been very underutilized by Miami these last couple of years. He was the most heavily targeted guy by Mac Jones in these early practices. And again, it's no pads, it's OTAs. I get it. I'm not trying to overreact, but just to know he is seamlessly fitting in so well. They were saying you don't be surprised if Gesicki and Hunter Henry are the top 2 target guys based on how often they were used. So I have him going at 15% target share, the second highest on the team with 86 targets. And I think it makes Gesicki, the only reason I don't absolutely love him is Hunter Henry's a good player too. And it's similar to Kincaid and Knox. It could be a situation where they're constantly nibbling at each other. But I think Gesicki's the clear-cut better pass catcher. He wasn't in line at all, and nor should he. He's not a good blocker. So I think he's the more big body kind of slot, split him out, get him going wide. I think Bill O'Brien, he recruited him at Penn State too. They have a history together. I like Mike Gesicki quite a bit. So 8 touchdowns may be lofty, but he is a touchdown scorer. You think about how many hideous gritties you had to see last year from the Gesicki celebration. So I really like Gesicki. I think he's one of the better late-round tight ends you can make an investment in. I just think this offense overall gets a lot more stable. Rhamondre being, again, the focal point and pretty solid, but that cut in receptions maybe making him a little less valuable. And then from there, the receivers are just going to be so spread out that rather than take JuJu in round 9, 10, go for Parker in their last rounds, and go for Gesicki in the last rounds type of situation.
Yeah, I'm not very bullish on the Patriots passing game. I mean, I'm still not convinced that Mac Jones is great. Definitely not good. I'm not sure. We'll see. I do really love Rhamondre. I mean, I think it's weird. People are saying, 266 carries, like that's low. It's like, no, to me, that's hot. That's legitimate bell cow work. That's 17, 18 carries a game. And if you, for some perspective, like I know we're talking about projections here, but for Cook and Damian Harris, I mean, they combined for about what you're projecting Rhamondre is going to get as far as carries. I mean, that's a legitimate workhorse guy. That's where's he going right now in snake drafts?
He's going like late second, early third at the latest.
I love him. Early third, I love him. Yeah.
Absolutely. I do too. So who would you like more? He goes sometimes around Derrick Henry. You probably go Henry, right? The king.
Maybe just on reputation. I mean, I love Henry. He's really fun to own, so I'd probably go Henry. But I wouldn't say a Rhamondre pick would be crazy.
Yeah. No, he often does. And then like Jacobs versus Rhamondre, I'm starting to lean Jacob. I mean, lean Rhamondre myself.
I would lean Rhamondre.
Yeah. I mean, if he does get the receiving work, I do obviously put him down for a little bit less than what we saw last year. But if he somehow does maintain that and they just decide, as they probably should, let's just make this guy a 350 touch guy this year. I mean, he's a beast. I saw him firsthand. I went to a Cleveland game where Harris was out, and Rhamondre went for like 170 and 3 touchdowns on the ground. I love the player. Don't get me wrong. Like, me projecting him for less is not me thinking he should get less. I think he should get more. I just am worried Montgomery, as disgusting as that is to say, I'm worried Montgomery's going to end up catching just around similar amount of balls. And that goes from going to 65 catches to like 40. And that does take its toll, given a lot of his work a lot of his points came from the receiving game.
Yeah, I hear you. No, I like him a lot. I hear him.
What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.